Hi everyone, it's Simon from Exam Solver here, and in this video I want to talk about the character Dr. Jekyll from the novel Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the relationship that he has with Mr. Hyde. I want to say in this video that it starts off actually being quite positive but then turns horribly negative. So his motivation for wanting to be Mr. Hyde is actually positive in a way. He wants to separate the bad desires that he has within himself from himself in a way. And this is exactly what the character Mr. Hyde allows him to do. He can act out the bad desires that he has without it hindering himself in any way, without it ruining the reputation he has, because of course no one knows that Mr. Hyde is actually Dr. Jekyll. Then what happens is he actually begins to enjoy being Mr. Hyde. He actually compares himself to a schoolboy who's able to kind of strip off parts of himself. These are quotes from the statement of the case that Jekyll uses when referring to what it was like to be Mr. Hyde at first, that he enjoys it. However, then it becomes really negative, because what happens is he sort of becomes addicted to being Mr. Hyde. It goes from enjoyment to a state of him being dependent on being Mr. Hyde. And a good quote for that is that he fell into slavery. In other words, being Mr. Hyde was no longer enjoyable or fun anymore. It was just something that he depended on. The word slavery implies that it wasn't pleasant, that it was sort of against his will, but there was nothing that he could do about it. You know, like a slave master who would keep a slave captive, Mr. Hyde was in a way keeping him captive. So what starts off as positive in a way, being Mr. Hyde, allows him to do exactly the kinds of things that he's dying to do but that he can't because of the upper class society that he comes from, becomes incredibly negative, and he feels like he's dependent upon Mr. Hyde. It's not pleasant anymore, but it's more of an addiction. And just like an addiction becomes out of control, so too Mr. Hyde gets out of control and ends up killing Sir Danvers Carew. So that was just an analysis of Dr. Jekyll. For more analysis of other characters from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and indeed characters from all of your literature texts, don't forget to check out examsolver.com.